Hi, in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between Ethernet straight-through cables and crossover cables. Okay, so if you remember from your reading or videos, we talked a little bit, or you learned a little bit about two types of unshielded twisted pair, or could be shielded twisted pair Ethernet cables. Straight through cables and crossover cables. And the difference between these cables is in how they are pinned, how the connectors have the different cables attached. They're both the 5.6 and the EIA TIA standards are 568A and B. Okay, not for me, not that important. What's important is to understand that there are two types of cables and how to recognize these two types of cables and how they're used. That's, to me, what's important. Okay, so how can you tell a straight through cable from a crossover cable? So here we have a straight through cable. If you put the two ends together, what do you notice? Do you notice that the colors all line up? And I look for orange and green because that's my eyes can see those. There's the orange, there's the green. Yep, the orange is on the far left. The green is second to the right, or kind of not second to the right, but on the right side. But it looks like all the cables line up by color perfectly with each other. That's a straight through cable. And we'll see how that's used compared to a crossover cable in just a moment. What do you notice about looking at these two ends when putting them together of a crossover cable? Take a look at that orange. Do you notice that the orange doesn't line up? We have it kind of on the right side here and on the left side here. Same thing with the green, the left side here, the right side here. Okay. So the pinnings of those cables differ on a crossover than a straight through. And this is how I recognize them. I just look for the orange and the green. Okay, so what's important here is when do you use a crossover and when do you use a straight through? Okay, so the rule of thumb here is a straight through you use for unlike devices. Crossover for like devices. So what's a like device and unlike device? Well, let's take a look here. Crossover. We said crossover is used for like devices. So here we have a switch and here we have a switch. Okay. By the way, like devices include if this is a switch, I'm using S for switch, and if this was a hub, that's still like devices and a crossover cable would be used. Okay. Here's another crossover cable. We have a host here, some kind of end device, and a router, okay? These are still considered like devices. Routers, end devices, they're all considered end devices because they're usually when we think about the encapsulation process or data link process is all about NIC card to NIC card communications. Okay, so this is kind of might be the sender and this might be the receiver. Okay. These hubs and switches are known as intermediary devices. Okay, so we took a look at crossover, like devices, straight through, unlike devices. Well, here we have a switch and here we have a router, okay? So these are unlike devices, or a switch and a host, okay? Unlike devices, okay? Again, the switch is an intermediary device. It's not the receiver, the end recipient of the Ethernet frame. So just kind of think of that like and unlike devices. Now, a good network engineer is going to make sure to use the proper cable in whatever situation you're using. Switches, we're not going to talk about hubs, but switches, routers, end devices, etc. However, There are features on a lot of devices that use what's called auto MDIX, and they actually auto sense what is at the other end. So they will actually let you use any type of cable. Okay? I'm old school. I'm not a big, I would just make sure you have the right cable. I think you're a lot safer this way. What happens if you have to replace a NIC card or a switch or something that doesn't have this feature? Then you got to replace the cable. And you may not even realize what the problem is while they're not connecting. But I'm old school. Okay, so auto MDIX will allow you to use whichever cable. It will go ahead and sense what is at the other end and adapt automatically. All right. Hope this helps you understand a little bit between straight through and crossover cables.